Now, South Africa's central bank has kept its benchmark repo rate unchanged at 7%, in line with market consensus. However, it's warned that risks to the inflationary outlook have increased. Delivering the last scheduled rate decision for the year, Central Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago said food price inflation was expected to moderate at a slower pace than previously forecast. Now, the bank has kept the benchmark rate on hold at its last 4 meetings. It has raised the rate by a cumulative 200 basis points since early 2014 in a bid to rein in inflation. The bank also forecasts for inflation in 2016. Those remained unchanged from September's meeting at 6.4%. It forecasts consumer prices peaking at 6.6% in the fourth quarter before moderating in the second half of 2017 due to improved weather conditions.
The global economic and political landscape had changed significantly following the U.S. presidential election. The high degree of uncertainty surrounding the economic policies of the new administration is expected to persist for some time, creating a more challenging and volatile environment for emerging markets in particular. Higher U.S. long bond yields, along with expectations of a tighter stance of monetary policy by the U.S. Fed than previously expected, have contributed to the reversal of the recent positive sentiment towards emerging markets. The prospect of rising protectionism and its implications for world trade are also a concern. These developments have also affected capital flows to South Africa, with implications for the rand and bond yields. Domestic growth and inflation dynamics have remained more or less in line with expectations, but risks to the inflation outlook have increased moderately.
Now, joining me with some more insight into today's MPC decision is Sumitra Naidu in Johannesburg. Sumitra, as always, welcome to the show. Now, of course, we saw today the rate remains unchanged once again, despite inflation numbers, of course, uncomfortably above the Reserve Bank's target. Now, what was the tone of today's meeting? And certainly, what are some of the key factors the bank is considering going forward?
So I think it was a rather subdued speech, Uche. There were no real surprises. The governor went through all the positives, but there weren't many. What was important is that the economy seems to be stabilizing. So even though he said the economy would remain under pressure, consumers will take a bit of strain, and nothing seems to be getting worse. The growth forecast for 2016 is 0.4%, which is better than the 0% predicted earlier this year. Inflation, although higher, is expected to taper off soon. The drought seems to be nearing an end, and food prices will peak in the first quarter of next year, or at least that's the expectation. But all of this came with a rather cautious approach. The governor alluded to the fact that the U.S. election has created a lot of uncertainty, and depending on the policies of Donald Trump, and if he continues to push ahead with protectionist measures, revised or scrap trade deals, all of this could spell disaster for the South African economy and emerging markets in general. And the rand in particular here at home is where we will be hit particularly hard. As the governor said, there's more upside risks of further weakness in the currency.
And Sumitra, we know the country right now is in the hot seat starting this week. You guys are waiting for the credit ratings from S&P and, of course, Moody's. Now, how worried did the Reserve Bank governor seem about a ratings downgrade?
Well, I think they're a lot more worried about this downgrade than they let on at today's meeting. It does seem to be a concern, again, to the currency. The governor said there would be more fallout if the ratings agencies downgraded the economy. Answering some questions today after the MPC meeting, he said the downgrade was a possibility. While the economy is showing some sign of stabilizing, growth remains very weak at just 0.4% this year. It doesn't look good, more especially on the unemployment front. These are two concerns that the ratings agencies have raised on several occasions. Unemployment is now at 27%. It's the highest it's been in a decade, and it's unlikely to decline if growth remains at such weak levels. And of course, the governor alluded to that again, saying that all of this will put more pressure on the currency. And of course, that's not good. It feeds into a whole lot of other issues that's affecting the economy.
And on that note, Sumitra, do you agree with a lot of analysts that this may be the end of the hiking cycle we've seen so far from the Reserve Bank?
Well, the decision to keep rates on hold was largely expected, and of course, but it was a different tone here compared to the last MPC meeting. At the last MPC meeting, all economists thought that the rate hiking cycle was over. But again, with all of the events that have happened in recent weeks, the U.S. election in particular, analysts believe that we could actually be back in a rate hiking cycle. So, the governor warned that the MPC would have to act if global challenges persist, suggesting that this hiking cycle is not over as yet. There's also a U.S. Fed meeting coming up in a few weeks, and it's most likely that U.S. rates will go up. So this too will feed into rand weakness, and of course inflation could force a rate hike. So a lot of concerns around where the rand is going to go in the next couple of weeks and the next couple of months.
Well, many thanks, Sumitra, for those insights. Sumitra Naidu joining us there in Johannesburg.